Okay, chapter 8, Flint. "Where on earth have you been?" Tompkins shouted. Flint winced, but before he could reply, a small tubby girl dropped down from a swing and charged through the ropes towards him. Her hair was short and wild about her face, as if she'd cut it herself in a hurry, without a mirror or even scissors. "My brother, you give me happy," she cried, flinging her arms around Flint's waist. Flint reddened, and for a moment he forgot all about the trouble he was in. Instead, he felt Eska's eyes on him, and he wondered whether she could see that Blue was different from everyone else in the tribe, that her eyes were smaller and sloping like almonds, and that her words came out all jumbled, even though she was 8 and she should have known better. But when he glanced at Eska, he saw she wasn't frowning. She wasn't raising her eyebrows in disgust either, like some people did when they spoke to Blue. She was just watching carefully, as he'd noticed she'd often done, without saying anything at all. "I miss you, brother," Blue said. Flint ruffled her hair. "I'm here now." Blue tickled Pebble beneath his chin. Then she turned to Eska and shot out a little hand. "Who you?" "I'm Blue." Eska blinked. Her words were cut short by a thump. Tompkin had leaped down from his swing and was striding across the room. He drew himself up before them, a necklace of razor-sharp bear claws splayed around his neck, a large knife hanging from his belt, and Eska found the words drying up in her mouth. Tompkin jabbed a finger in Eska's direction. "Who is she?" "She's not a spy, Tompkin," Flint said quickly. There were murmurs from the swings around them. "At least I'm almost certain that she's not. I met her at Winterfang." Tompkin's eyes blazed. "Winterfang? Why were you at the Ice Queen's palace?" "I was trying to rescue Ma. Of all the reckless, stupid, irresponsible things you've done," Tompkin spat, "this is the worst." Blue clung onto Flint's arm. "Be nice, Tompkin. Be nice to brother." But Tompkin didn't even look at his sister. Instead, he narrowed his eyes at Flint. "You're still inventing things, aren't you? Even though I told you to stop." "No, definitely not," Flint grimaced, knowing how hollow his words sounded. He'd never been a good liar. "You made a bunch of stupid objects that you thought could help rescue Ma," Tompkin hissed, "but they didn't work." "They never work, Flint. When will you learn that magic can't be trusted?" Blue put her hands over her ears. "You're not an inventor. You're a warrior, like the rest of Fur Tribe. Or at least you're meant to be." Tompkin shot a glance at Pebble, who was peeping out of Flint's hood. "And it's high time you dumped that fox pup back in the wild, where it belongs. When we found its mother dead last spring, you were told to drown the pup because it wouldn't survive without her." He shook Flint by the shoulders, and Pebble leapt down from Flint's hood and cowered behind Eska. "You're too old for pets now, and you're too old for me to be rushing around deep roots trying to find you." Flint shrunk inside his furs. The whole tribe was listening to what a terrible disappointment he was. Even Eska now knew it, and the shame burned his cheeks. Blue let out a whimper, and Flint stroked her hair. "You're upsetting Blue," he said quietly. "I'm upsetting Blue," Tompkin spat. "You ran away." For a moment, his eyes softened. "Imagine if you hadn't come back." Flint reached out to touch the necklace his little sister wore, the one he had made by attaching a rabbit paw to a loop of willow twine. It was a good luck talisman, or so the carvings he'd found in the wood claimed, and Flint hoped it would keep his sister safe. "I'd always come back, Blue," he whispered. "Always." Blue wriggled free and poked Tompkin in the stomach. Not nice words. Be friends. Tompkins sighed. We spent months and months building this hideaway, Flint. We can't afford to have the Ice Queen and her spies following your tracks to finding us. Flint shook his head. It snowed last night. Our tracks are covered. Until Deep Roots, at least. I wouldn't put us in danger. There were more mumblings from Fur Tribe. Then someone called out, "What about the girl? Why is she here? We've no room for outsiders." Esker took a small step behind Flint. "This is Esker," Flint said to his brother. "I don't really know who she is, but she was the Ice Queen's prisoner, and I think she knows things that could help us." There was a long and painful silence. Then Blue turned to Esker, shot out her hand once again and said, "I Blue." Esker took her hand and tried to smile, but one by one the Fur Tribe stood up on their swings. And that's when the shouting began. "Look at her eyes," one girl cried. "She's a Tusk spy." "She's not welcome here," a boy shrieked. "She's the Ice Queen's pet. Tell her to leave. We can fight our rebellion without an outsider." Tonkin put up his hand and the voices were quelled. "That's enough. I need to speak with my brother, alone." Flint turned to Esker, then pointed to an empty hammock beside them. "Sit there," he said, "and don't attempt any conversations." Esker seemed about to say something, but Tonkin was already marching off between the swings, and Flint had to hurry to keep up. The tribe were muttering now, casting fierce looks towards the visitor sitting by the door, but Flint ignored them. He ignored Tonkin, whispering to Blade, Tonkin's second in command. As they passed, but as he stooped to enter a small tent made of caribou skins at the far end of the room, he glanced back towards Esker. Blue was chattering away to her, and Pebble was hopping between them. He paused for a second. There was something about this girl, something he couldn't put his finger on. She wasn't strong or impressive, and yet he was starting to believe that there was something special about her voice, something secret and important. He ducked inside the tent to find his brother sitting on a stool. Barely taking a breath, Tonkin launched into his lecture. The Fur Tribe fight with weapons, not far-fetched ideas, and you need to remember that. Flint wanted to tell Tonkin about how well his Gerfalcon whistle had worked, and about how he had so nearly managed to reach their mark. But Tonkin raised a hand before those sentences could unravel, and with a heavy heart, Flint filled his brother in on all that he had seen and heard in Winterfang Palace, and about the things Esker had told him of the Ice Queen's plans. "What if Esker could help us?" Flint said. Tonkin snorted. "That runt you dragged in? She'd be of no help to anyone. And a voice, Flint, even from you, that type of thing is ridiculous. How could a voice beat the Ice Queen? You've been spun a line by that girl." "At least speak to Esker," Flint muttered. He got up to go. "Just listen to what she has to say, then you can decide." Tonkin sighed. "There's no point, Flint." "There might be." And with that he hurried from the tent to go and find Esker. But as he wove through the ropes, he noticed how quiet the room was. The rest of the Fur Tribe were crouching on their swings, watching him with slitted eyes, and when Fleet reached the door, he saw that only Blue and Pebble were on the hammock. Esker was nowhere to be seen. Flint made a dash towards the door, but a bulky boy clad in lynx furs blocked his way. "Whose side are you on, Flint?" Blade asked, and Flint realised what had happened, why Tonkin had whispered to Blade on the way to the tent. "You made her leave, didn't you?" he said. "On Tonkin's orders." Blade raised his chin. "She didn't belong here. Tonkin's right. We can't trust outsiders at a time like this." Flint chewed his lip. Back at the food store, he had planned to abandon Esther if Tompkins saw no use for her. But then he'd seen her with the eagle, so stubborn and fierce, and something inside him had shifted. There was more to Esther than first met the eye. Yes, she'd messed up his chances of freeing his mom, but did she really deserve to be cast out? And what if her voice really was the key to defeating the Ice Queen? Flint glanced up at the Fur Tribe and tried to read their faces, but one by one they turned away so that he was left looking at a sea of backs. And then Tonkin emerged from the tent and made his way through the swings towards his brother. It's time to grow up, Flint. We need warriors, not dreamers, to bring the rest of our tribe home. Blue picked up Pebble and stroked his head. Where your friend, Flint? I like friend. Flint felt something tug inside him, but he shook it away, remembering instead the humiliation of being shouted at by Tonkin in front of everyone, and he turned his heart in the direction of the tribe. She wasn't my friend, he muttered. She was a stupid tusk spy.